What's going on, Angelo family? In today's video, we're going to talk about the 3 greatest personal finance lessons that really changed my life. Those are curious, I'm a UCLA MBA as well as a Google Meta PM who's worked heavily on the business side of things. And I want to do a video on the 3 biggest, greatest lessons that's really changed my life for the better. Most of us, we kind of come into the world with life without any real financial knowledge or kind of idea of how the world works from the finance perspective side of things, right? We go through school, we get a job, and we just kind of learn whatever our major is. We learn everything about, say if you're a biology major, about human biology, you learn finance, you learn about just basic financial principles, or even as a kind of a major in, say, like chemistry, you learn about chemistry, right? A lot of times like business, finance, personal finance especially isn't really taught to you. And you kind of just got to figure things out on your own. So many of us, we come out of college, come out of school with so much debt, and then we don't understand that this money needs to be paid off. It's going to generate interest, accumulate interest over time, and we're actually going to be screwed if we don't do anything about it. So this video is about basically the biggest 3 personal finance lessons I've learned and has changed my life. And most of this wasn't taught at school. It was just really found based on me going on YouTube, learning everything, and just figuring everything out. So here's my first lesson, really. My first lesson for me was just to pay off all your debt, right? So going to UCLA I was very fortunate that it was a UC school, so a lot of it was kind of state tuition. So it's a little cheaper than going to a private college, private university. But one thing you don't really realize is that it's actually still very expensive. I think for undergrad, it's around like $30K a year, right? Times 4, you had $120,000 a year in student loans. And then you go to grad school, and in grad school, I think it was like another, $120,000. So you're almost at $250,000 in student loans and student debt just going to school. And this is for people who are just kind of doing a normal master's and an undergrad program. And then you got to keep in mind too, it's like just because you're paying for tuition doesn't mean there's other expenses not associated with it, right? You're still going to have your living expenses, right? Your rent, you're still going to have the food you buy, you're still going to have the money you spend going out with friends and just kind of enjoying life in college. And it's extremely expensive just to be alive, especially now, like inflation is huge. We're just kind of coming out of everything and things just get more and more expensive, and people's salaries are just still kind of like that $15 minimum per hour. And it's very, very expensive to be alive. So for me, undergraduate, right, as well as kind of like grad school, I think total almost $300,000. It was kind of insane, right? And I'm still kind of in school right now, which is insane, right? However, I realized and saw how much and how money worked, right? Many times we're told to get a loan from FAFSA, right? A student loan. You don't really realize, okay, I don't need to pay for the student loan until I get out of college. And then we see that student loan has accumulated so much interest over the 4 years we're in school. And then you have more loan coming in from like grad school. And that loan kind of compounds over the loan from undergrad. And you see that you have so much debt associated with your name. And it becomes kind of overwhelming in the fact that, hey, the minimum payment, especially I've seen friends who are in medical school, the minimum payment is around $2,000 or $3,000 a month just to hit the minimum payment for their student loan. And you're just kind of like left like, what the heck? How the heck are you supposed to pay this off, right? Most jobs after tax, right? If you're lucky, you're getting like $4,000 or $5,000 a month after tax, right? That's not to count in all your living expenses associated with basically what you still have to pay, right? So you're gonna have so much debt getting out of school. And this isn't something that's taught to us, right? We get the FAFSA loan, we kind of spend on tuition, books, whatever it may be, and we kind of just blow it really quickly, not realizing that after school, oh man, I still have to pay off this loan. Oh man, there's still gonna be a cost associated with this. So, well, first thing I did really, because I had about $300,000 debt, and then I kind of made my final tuition payment a few weeks ago, was that I really focused on paying off all my debt. I was not oblivious to the fact that if you pick a field that is in demand and that pays well, you will get fairly compensated. You be compensated well for whatever you do for the job you're working in, right? So for me, I picked technology. I knew that technology, like working in big tech, was going to pay the most out of college, especially if you're not going to become like a doctor or someone practicing medicine. So I was very fortunate to work at Google. And during my time at Google, like I would work several jobs at the same time, right? So I would work and consult at other companies, right? Google was paying kind of me a W-2. That was a great job. And then I also consulted at other tech companies on PM work, as well as other like just companies in general on PM work, because they loved my experience working in big tech. So I was able to compound all the money from there, from these 3 roles, and use that to pay off all my loans. There was a time frame actually last year where I was paying about $10,000 a month in loans because I really wanted to pay off that loan, because I have so many friends and just family members who were basically in student loan debt their whole life, right? So for me, I would take all the money from Google. I was consulting at a place called Airbnb, and then I was also consulting at another company. And net take home, very fortunate for me, was around $20,000 a month net take home. I used half of that every month to pay off the loans from my master's, as well as from undergrad, and then from a car, because I needed a car to get around from place to place, right? A little background about me, I didn't grow up rich or anything. I grew up kind of like lower middle class, maybe even like kind of closer to the poverty line. Both my mom and dad were working minimum wage jobs because they came from the Philippines. And I knew that I had to figure everything out myself. It wasn't gonna be like some rich family member or someone was just gonna save me. It was just more or less, I have to figure everything out. And that's kind of what drove me to work so hard last year and these previous few years, right? So for me, I really focused on finding ways to pay off my debt, whether that be working multiple jobs, applying for scholarships, living kind of below my means, right? Even though I was taking home a good amount of money every month, I still really focused on paying off that debt. That was my main priority, because the crazy thing about student loans is that that's the one debt that cannot be filed through bankruptcy, right? You can buy a home, you can buy a car, whatever it may be. In bankruptcy, it can remove that loan from you, right? But student loans, specifically from the government, specifically from a private lender, they will never go away. They're always gonna be with you your entire life, and they'll be with you till death, which is kind of unfortunate, right? So that's why I always felt like and preached that financial stability and just financial literacy for yourself, paying off all that loan, paying off that debt, right? So I focused all my money from Google, from Airbnb, from another place I was also consulting in to pay off all that loan. Fortunately for me, the way you get compensated from a tech company is that you get paid stock, you get paid a bonus, you get paid salary. Because I believe so much in Google's equity, I never sold it. I always allowed it to appreciate. And then I used the money from my base salary, as well as from my bonus from Google, to just basically pay off all that loan. Because I knew that with inflation, with the way the world works, the way the money works, is that it always depreciates every year, right? It's worth like 3% less every year because of inflation, because of whatever it may be. So I always took the time to use that money being generated from my W-2 income to just pay off any loan, any debt, whatever it may be. And that was how I kind of approached everything. And then when I would get paid from Airbnb every 2 weeks, I'd use that same money to pay off any loan, any debt that I may have. And then the other company I was also consulting in, I used that money to pay off all the loan, any debt, whatever is associated with, right? I know it kind of sounds a bit crazy, like, dang, how do you work 3 jobs, right? But for me, I was very fortunate. I really honed on focusing on remote jobs, because the remote jobs allowed me to have several meetings at the same time. And they also allowed me to just kind of allocate all my resources to different time frames, right? Being in an office is kind of like when you kind of get screwed over, where like, all right, well, someone's gonna be watching you 24/7. You can't really have multiple streams of income. So when I was working at Google, Airbnb, in my other consulting role, everything was fully remote. So really try and hone in on finding remote roles. I know it's a little bit harder now, but finding those remote roles will really help you kind of have multiple streams of income, right? And another thing about paying off your debt, what I really kind of like focused on was like with student loans, with the car, is that I focused like on something called the debt snowball effect, right? So many times we're taught to like, oh, you should just attack the debt with the highest amount of interest. I think for UCLA, loan interest rate was like around 7%, and then the car was around 3% interest rate, right? And you need to realize that it accumulates over time. The interest just compounds. It's not going to go away. So for me, the lowest fruit pick or the lowest loan to pick was from school, right? UCLA, right? So I really tried like paying off all that UCLA loan, because that was around what, 120,000. And then I just attacked it. Like each year you have a different loan being taken out for school, right? So your first year, second year, third year, fourth year, right? If you're basically taking out loans, you're gonna have different loans for each year, because one, the interest rate will go up. Two, that each year the tuition fee for your school is different every year. So you just need to attack the smallest loan first, right? So the one I attacked first was the loan from my freshman year, and then my sophomore year, and then my junior year, then my senior year. And then I started attacking the loans from my car and from business school. So really look at the smallest loan and then just attack that loan first, right? Pay off that loan first. Don't try and invest in the market. Like pay off the debt, because the debt you have from school, from your assets or your car, whatever it may be, that is debt that is of high risk, right? If you were to invest like in the stock market, like in the S&P 500, you guarantee around 8 to 10% every year, right? But that debt you may have may be going at 8% every year, and that's not going to change, right? Because it's not a variable rate. It's a fixed rate associated with your student loan debt, right? So always attack the smallest debt first. I call this the debt snowball effect. I learned that from Dave Ramsey. I'm not taking any credit from that, but that's what I really did first. I attacked the smallest debt first. And by doing that, I was able to pay off all my loans, about $300,000 worth of loans. Working 3 jobs, I know it was crazy, it was not good for my health, but you just need to do things, especially when you're kind of time need. Like I said, I came from a lower class family, mom and dad, minimum wage jobs. I just had to figure it out. Okay, so next greatest personal finance lesson I've learned was to really just plan for retirement, right? At Google gave us a Roth IRA, an employee-sponsored 401k plan. And then for me, I always invested in a Roth IRA. And I just opened one through Robinhood, Schwab, whatever it may be, whatever your personal broker of choice is, opening that Roth IRA. So first, every check at Google, I really maximized that 401k, right? So at Google, you were given $20,500 every year to invest in your 401k. They had a 50% match. So that's around $10,250, right? So at the end of the day, you're left with $30,750 in 401k retirement. And they use that money. Everything is invested in Vanguard. And if you're curious what Vanguard is a large institutional investor that invests money. Basically, like it's a large investment firm where they take a lot of employees or corporations 401k plans. They'll put it in like a mutual fund or an ETF, which is exchange traded fund. Imagine a mutual fund and exchange traded fund is like this giant basket of stocks that everyone can just put money in and eventually appreciate in value. So for me, every check I would get from Google, I would invest it into the company sponsored employee 401k plan, right? Until it hit that $20,500, right? So for me, because I had 3 jobs at Google, Airbnb, and another place I was consulting, I always put all my money into that employee sponsored 401k plan. So by the end of March of every year, that 401k plan was fully maximized, and I didn't need to contribute to that 401k plan anymore, right? So that was the cool part about having multiple roles and just kind of working so hard, is that you could really allocate all of your money to that employee-sponsored 401k plan. And the cool thing about this employee-sponsored 401k plan is that the money going in is already taxed, right? Because whenever you have a job, like a W-2 income from a company like Google, Airbnb, whatever it may be, you're usually taxed for your state tax as well as your federal income tax, right? So at Google, because it was in California and because you're making around $300,000 a year, you were going to be taxed around 40%, right? And that 40% was already coming out of your paycheck and out of all your equity grants, right? Because every 3-4 months, Google will give you stock in the company, Alphabet equity, and then that equity is already taxed. You're not getting that full vest, whatever it may be, and you're not getting that full paycheck from your normal base salary as well as from your bonus. Everything is taxed, right? So the money you put into that 401k, it comes taxed. However, when you turn 62, 65, whatever your retirement age is, you get to withdraw that money tax-free, right? So you're getting free money from your employer, as well as you're able to basically save up for retirement. Most people, because they have such high expenses, because they have such high debt, they won't invest into their 401k. That's why the first step I always tell you guys, pay off all your debt, right? For me, it was student loans, right? I had so much student loans from school, from business school. Pay off all your student loans. So what I did was I really maximized my 401k. Every year, I would put all my money into that 401k plan, right? And it's all being invested in a mutual fund, exchange traded fund. That's usually a medium high growth mutual fund. And that's going to grow around 8 to 9% every year. And you can check your Vanguard account every year, right? Every employer that you work with will give you this 401k plan, right? Given that you're a W-2 employee, given that you're actually working for the company, you're not like a 1099 contractor, right? You're like a real employee with that company, right? 1099 contracting is great too because you're able to get paid a little bit more because there's no benefits with it. But if you're trying to have a plan for retirement, use your employee-sponsored 401k. And then another avenue for you to approach it is also through a Roth IRA. So the Roth IRA is basically a retirement fund where you can put about $6,500 a year into your Roth IRA. That also grows tax deferred. So because you are putting the money in post-tax, right? Once you turn 62, 65, that money is going to be able to be withdrawn tax-free. And for me, whenever I have a Roth IRA, I don't try and pick like the next greatest stock. I don't try and pick like, oh, what's gonna be the next Apple? What's gonna be the next Google? I keep it really safe, right? Because I subscribe to kind of Warren Buffett's approach to finances, right? Where you need to realize there are so many hedge funds, there are so many large institutional firms that have millions and billions of dollars in play where they're hiring the smartest people from Harvard, from Stanford, from Wharton, from all these amazing great schools, from UCLA. And they're paying them lots of money to really analyze the market, find the best equity, the best share so they can beat the market. For us as like a normal person, your best bet is really just to get a Roth IRA account, put the $6,500, $6,500 if you're in the United States, and then just buy a mutual fund, right? Similar to how the Vanguard 401k is, right? For me, that mutual fund was VTSAX, and that mutual fund basically mimicked the S&P 500, and it will grow 8 to 9 to 10% every year, right? So for every year, like even if you're a student right now, if say you have no debt, you should actually just buy a Roth IRA, invest in a mutual fund, and allow that to appreciate over time. Use this kind of as like a safeguard for yourself, right? I think when you're young, you need to take risks with your career, right? But also save like 10, 20% and then invest that into your retirement, because this will be your nest egg, right? So in case anything was ever to go down, like when you get older, like, oh, it'd be nice knowing that, oh, at least I have $1-2 million in the account because of the appreciation over time for the assets that I bought when I was in my 20s, right? So think of that, right? Because for me, like a lot of my family, right, they came from a different country. They weren't aware of how financial products worked, right? So a lot of that money that they had earned earlier in their career was just spent on cars, food, whatever it may be. And then now that they're getting towards retirement, it's like, we don't have anything. So kind of keep that in mind, is that Roth IRA is a great way for you to invest in retirement if you're not working, right? Employee-sponsored 401k plan is one way to invest, right? Do that $20,500. Most employers have 50% match. Invest in that. You get around $30,000 every year. That's going to grow over time, especially with that 8 to 9% appreciation. And then you have a Roth IRA as well, 6,500 every year. You're gonna be able to invest in the VT Sachs, which is a mutual fund ETF, and then that will grow 8 to 9% every year. And then by the time you're 65, retirement age, you're gonna have $4 or $5 million in retirement, right? So this is just kind of a safeguard way, right? This is all for you to just invest over time. So that way, when you reach the end of your career, you do have that nest egg to look forward to if you haven't made hundreds of millions of dollars from your company, from your business, whatever it may be, kind of from that avenue, that perspective, right? So that is the best kind of way to invest in retirement for yourself, right? Employee-sponsored 401k plan and a Roth IRA, right? Also, another thing too is that for all the stock Google gave me, I never sold any of the equity, right? Because I really believed in the company, because I knew that Google was going to be around for such a long time, I never sold any equity that was given to me, right? So the way it works in big tech, like I kind of mentioned before, is that every 3 to 4 months, you're given equity or you're given stock, right? So they'll give you stock. It goes into your Schwab account or your Merrill Lynch account. Alphabet uses Schwab or Merrill Lynch. And then you basically have the option of selling that equity, or you can just kind of keep it, allow it to grow. For Google, I knew that AI was going to get super big, right? Because I would get emails from Sundar, and then Sundar would be like, hey, code red, ChatGPT is out. Google needs to focus all their resources and assets on Gemini. And Gemini is Google's version of artificial intelligence, right? So if you guys are kind of just aware of the news right now, ChatGPT is getting really big. GPT-4 came out. DALL-E is really big, right? So now everything is kind of this AI battle with Gemini, Google, and then I think Meta created Llama 2, which I'm starting to see through Instagram, right? But everything was really focused on Gemini. And then when Google launched Gemini, the market responded really well and equity stock went up a ton, right? So basically, when Google was paying me equity, it was around $90 a share, right? Gemini launched. They're heavily focused on AI. Now it's around $172 a share, right? So basically, a lot of my equity from Alphabet, from Google, had doubled because I never sold anything, right? So that's one thing too, is like, if you're fortunate enough to go to a company that you believe has high growth, like a Meta, like a Google, or even like NVIDIA. I have friends over at NVIDIA who are there for about a year or two now. They're multimillionaires because they got so lucky with the AI boom, right? So really focus on, if you have equity in a company that you really, really believe in, and it's not some Joe Schmo company, like a really big high growth, say, hopefully tech company or whatever it may be, and you truly believe in the mission, keep that equity, right? Everything I have in Alphabet and Google, it's all still there. So I rarely recommend you keep that, right? Even my equity from when I was at Meta, I never sold anything because I believed in how Zuckerberg was going for the metaverse. I believed in the people I worked with, the engineers there. I knew that they were going to focus on AI. I knew that the value was not going to go away, and he was going to be a huge player, right? I have a friend. He actually, I met him at business school, and he was one of the first engineers at Instagram. So he was with Kevin Systrom, and there on the first day or so, or right first month or two when they built Instagram, and then he was there having meetings with Zuckerberg. So he was given a lot of equity in Facebook, or what was called Facebook before it was Meta, and he never sold anything. So now he doesn't have to work anymore, right? So similar when I started working at Google, really believe in the company. I'm not going to sell anything, especially if I think it's going to appreciate in value, right? So if you're fortunate enough to go to a company that is kind of going to be a part of this AI kind of world that we're going to start living in, or you just really believe in it, don't sell your equity, keep it there. And that's what I'm planning to do, right? Also kind of too, if you're fortunate enough to get into an initial public offering, IPO, right? I had a buddy at Poshmark. He was there during an IPO. Never sold anything, now he doesn't have to work anymore. So kind of keep that in mind, right? So those are the ways to really plan for retirement. The third greatest skill I kind of learned was to just take calculated risk with your career, right? So what does that mean? For me, I was always super risk adverse because I grew up super poor, right? I always thought money was going to go away because I never saw a lot of it growing up. It was one of the one of the most scarcest resources I've like learned about, right? So I always wanted to like play it safe, right? I always wanted to go like the best school. I always wanted to like work at the biggest company. That way I knew that I was always going to be safe. And it's just because I don't know if it's like hardwired genetically growing up without much, you kind of less risk adverse than most, which is unfortunate. But however, I've kind of learned is that you do need to take risks, especially when you're super young, right? So what does that mean? One big thing happening right now is startups, right? So a lot of the wealth I've seen in the Silicon Valley has been through new money, right? New York, I kind of learned this at business school and a lot of my friends at Stanford, they always told me like New York was old money because a lot of the large financial institutions, the hedge funds, most people when they came to America back in the day would enter through New York, right? So a lot of that was old money. But in the Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area, in like specifically like Palo Alto, San Francisco, like San Jose, Sunnyvale, whatever it may be, a lot of that money is new money because a lot of that money is coming from tech, right? So a lot of companies were going through accelerators like Y Combinator, YC, which is basically one of the world's, if not the world's most prestigious startup accelerator, where companies like Stripe, Airbnb, a lot of companies, they would go through that accelerator program, and then after that, they would be able to basically raise funding, go through IPO, and create a new kind of company that will become more valuable to the world. Like Brian Chesky, he created Airbnb through Y Combinator during his time there. So one thing I recommend is join a startup that you have a lot of faith in, right? It's high risk, but there also is high reward, right? You will learn so much from doing multiple roles at a startup. Also, last but not least, start a side hustle. For me, even though I've been working like 3 jobs at the same time, it's a lot, right? I still kind of found time to make content, to build whatever I tried to build, right? First channel we made, already monetized, and that's been amazing, right? We're generating revenue from that. So, and that's just through YouTube. So my recommendation is whatever you're interested in, whatever you're passionate in, don't forget to kind of harness that and to continue to build that, right? This channel is really meant to help you guys with all the life lessons I've kind of learned at work, school, as I'm kind of going through school right now, and just to kind of progress society and give back to the world, right? There's so much I wish I knew, and this is my way for giving back, right? So if you have something you're passionate about, whether it be gardening, sports, personal finance, business, video games, whatever it may be, create a channel, create an Instagram, a YouTube, TikTok, whatever it may be on that, right? Because there's a different feeling you get from working on your passions, working on things you really care about. For me, business, finance, and giving back to the world is how I feel most fulfilled with life, right? There's this quote by Gary Becker, and he's from his father that said, if you want to shrink your problems, increase your purpose in life, right? For me, giving you guys this information is how I increase my purpose in life, and I hope it really helps you guys with your journeys, right? So start that channel, start your side hustle, whatever it may be, and just go with it, right? Because you're gonna feel so much fulfillment, and the fact that you're helping a lot of people will honestly really change your life. It's done so much for me, and you'll actually able to generate income, generate money from whatever you're building, right? Especially if you go on YouTube, especially if you're building stuff that really helps progress society. Angelo family, I appreciate you guys so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We have a lot of new content coming out. We're growing like crazy. Check out all the shorts. They've been growing out so much. Check out the links down below for my channel, as well as for if you want to kind of join my newsletter, I have a link for that below. And then you can check out all the channels I do have on links below. Follow me on Instagram as well. And the affiliate links down below, please click on that. I do get a portion of revenue from that. So if you guys are interested in the products I use, as well as the equipment I use to film and record all this, it is down below. Angelo family, have an amazing day, and I appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart. Peace.
That's what.